What's happening, everybody? It's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my NFL 2025 AFC and NFC Championship picks. Before we talk about the conference title games, go into my thoughts from the divisional round, and I must say that 2 of the 4 games really were the only good games of the weekend. Of course, I'm talking about Buffalo, Denver, and the Rams and the Bears game. They were only the 2 best games of that weekend. And there was a lot to unravel in both of those games. Obviously, the first one talking about was the Bills-Broncos game. The game went into overtime, but the Broncos ended up winning. But it was really more to what happened during the game. I mean, Bills Mafia, I know you're still raving and upset about that so-called interception, which a lot of you said that Cook had possession. It's very hard for me to say that it was a catch because it does boil down kind of like to what happened with Dez Bryant back in the 2014 playoffs when he was on the Cowboys when they played the Packers. I looked at their replay numerous times, and it hurts me to say this because I love you, Bills Mafia, but Cook never had control. He never had control. I'm not going to speak up in defense of the referees because there were a ton of missed calls in that game. I kind of agree with you, Bills Mafia, on other calls that I felt the refs missed in that game. And obviously those, to me, Cook did not really have possession, to be honest. And it was unfortunate. And the Broncos ended up finding it into their hands defensively, and it ended up becoming an interception. And then basically the Bills self-destructed in overtime with 2 bad penalties and a misconduct penalty. Basically won the game for the Broncos easily. But I think people forget to mention the fact that Josh Allen picked the worst time to play his worst playoff game possibly in his entire career. The fumbles he had in that game basically did cost them. The Bills had to play catch up the entire second half. They were fortunate enough to get it to overtime, but like I said earlier, they self-destructed, and the Broncos ended up winning. But for the Broncos, losing Bo Nix for the season due to a knee injury, there was basically no winner in this game. Obviously, the Bills suffered, but then the Broncos losing their starting quarterback, Bo Nix, and now the Broncos are screwed. I don't know. Let's see what happens. And going into that Rams-Bears game, boy, did Caleb Williams become Iceman on a lucky Hail Mary pass that somehow the Rams secondary forgot to cover the wide receivers, and somehow they ended up tying the game and going into overtime. But it pains me to say this because I'm also a USC Trojan fan as well. I've seen this from Caleb Williams a lot. He's prone to throw bad interceptions. And I was afraid that he was going to do it, and he ended up doing it. One bad throw. I don't know where DJ Moore was when I don't know if they were not on the same page, but just the worst interception at the worst time, especially for the Bears having a great season they've had. It's going to be tough to say if they will be back next year because there's going to be a lot of question marks on that Bears team. But for the Rams, they're starting to prove, are they still a favorites to reach the Super Bowl? I don't know. When I look back at San Francisco and Seattle, I knew for the 49ers the injuries would catch up to them eventually. Seattle just basically opened up a whooping on them. And then the Texans, CJ Stroud played much worse than Josh Allen did, and obviously despite the Texans defense that they just had no answer for the Pats offense. I had a feeling the Texans offense, especially with CJ Stroud, they were going to pick a bad day to have a bad game, and it happened at the worst possible time. It was in the playoffs, and they have never gotten past the divisional round. Who knows where the Texans stand now going forward. But other than that, let's talk about the AFC and NFC Championship. Let's begin first with the 2025 AFC Championship. The Patriots versus the Broncos. The Patriots are 5.5 favorite, and given the fact with no Bo Nix for the Broncos, they should be favored in this game. Drake May was 16 of 27, 179 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. He didn't even have to do all that much because the Patriots defense really did a great job on that Texans offense. I'm not going to get into Denver stats because obviously what happened to Bo Nix, he's not going to play in this game. And now the Broncos having to go to Jarrett Stidham. And I don't know if he's going to be ready in this game. Because all these question marks are for Denver right now. Can Jarrett Stidham lead the Broncos offense? Can he play a decent game? And they have some question marks right now in terms of some questionable players right now. Franklin, Bryant, are they going to play in this game? Because they're crucial for the passing game if they're not playing. Look, I'm assuming they will. But if one of them is out, it's just going to make it, I can see that Patriots defense just basically having them for lunch. But there's possibility that J.K. Dobbins might come back and play. Obviously, he's had a foot injury throughout all throughout the regular season and in parts into the postseason. There's a possibility he might play in this game, but I wouldn't bet on it. The running game for Denver has to be coming up somewhere from their second and third strings, whoever's on that depth chart. But it really has to boil down, can the Broncos defense get to Drake May? That's really the key in this game. Find a way to slow down the Pats offense and hopefully pray for any miracles that Stidham can make some plays and give the Broncos points, because that's the only way they're going to have any sort of miracle to beat the Pats. Now, for the Patriots to win this game, basically, their defense just have to get to Stidham. They got to get to him. If they get to him, the Broncos have no shot. Diggs and Booty, let them do their thing. Stevenson and Henderson with that 1-2 punch. If they run the ball effectively against that Bronco defense, that Bronco defense ain't going to survive out there in this game. Plain and simple. I'm picking the Patriots, and everybody pretty much is picking them. I don't really see much hope for the Broncos. You don't have your starting quarterback. You're going to rely on Stidham or whoever the Broncos bring in, because they're talking about some other players they might bring in. God knows where. But it's pretty obvious the AFC Championship is the easy pick. I would be shocked if Denver somehow finds a way to win, but we have to be reasonable. Without Bo Nix, the Broncos don't have a chance. Patriots at -5.5. They're headed to the Super Bowl. And unfortunately for all Patriot haters, including myself, there's no stopping this. They're going to the Super Bowl. Let's move on to the 2025 NFC Championship. It is the Rams versus the Seahawks. The Seahawks are a slight 2.5-point favorite, and I would expect that number to go to 2, maybe even 1.5. Matthew Stafford for the Rams went 20 of 42, 258 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Obviously, the running game was much more effective against the Bears. They were able to run the ball a little bit more better this time around. For Sam Darnold and the Seahawks, he went 12 of 17, 124 yards, 1 touchdown. Stats weren't much because their defense did all the work. But the thing is, though, Charbonnet out for the season. Now it's down to Walker, and they have some other injuries already in their depth chart in terms of the running game. Walker's basically all by himself now. So that could be trouble for that Seahawk offense. But what are the keys for the Seahawks to win this game? It boils down to Sam Darnold. He's got to find a way to prove that he's not the old Sam Darnold and basically not throwing the ball effectively. But he's got a supporting cast with JSN, Kupp, and Shaheed. They got to be able to find a way to expose that Rams secondary if they're going to win this game. But obviously it boils down to Sam Darnold. Can he make the plays? And there's no question on the defensive side, they got to get to Matthew Stafford and slow him down. Otherwise, Stafford is just going to shred their defense, their secondary. And speaking of the Rams, how do they win this game? There's question marks on whether the health of Stafford. Obviously, he did get pretty banged up against the Bears last Sunday. So a lot of it is on his and some of it was on his throwing hand. How effective is he in throwing passes? Kyron Williams and Corum have to be able to run the ball against the Seahawks defense. You got to be able to pound the ball if they're to ease off any sort of pressure on Matthew Stafford. Nakua, Adams, and Parkinson, they got to be able to beat the Seahawks' secondary if they want any shot of breaking through against that defense. This is definitely an extremely tough pick here. Round 3 between these two teams because they split the series in the regular season. The NFC West really representing this year. They've been the best division all season in the NFC. It's a 50-50 toss-up. I really don't know who wins this football game here. I expect this to be an extremely hard-fought game for 4 quarters. These two teams going at it. It should be a good one in Seattle. But I got to go with experience. I'm picking the Rams because Matthew Stafford has won a Super Bowl already, and he's hungry for another one. They will find a way to break through that Seattle. Because look, with Charbonnet out, out for Seattle, and now having to rely on Walker in the running game, you're putting a lot of pressure on Matthew Stafford now. And that's why, I should say Sam Darnold. Excuse me, it's Sam Darnold, sorry. You're putting a lot of pressure on Darnold. And that's how I feel. I think the Rams will barely beat the Seahawks in this game. It's going to be a hard-fought game all the way. But I can see the Rams winning this game. And I'm picking the Rams at plus 2.5. I think they'll beat the Seahawks. It's going to be a hard-fought game. It's 50-50 who wins this football game here. I don't know who wins this game. It's going to be a tough game for 4 quarters. It should be a good NFC Championship game. But I just think the Rams, with Matthew Stafford and the experience he has and his playmakers, I think they will find a way to beat that Seattle defense. I'm picking the Rams at plus 2.5. And I hate to say this, people. I know none of you want this matchup. I'm one of them, but it looks like we're going to get it again. For the 3rd time in the last 20 NFL seasons, the Rams and the Patriots will meet one more time in the Super Bowl. And I hate to say that is the projected Super Bowl 60 matchup in my book. We don't know what's going to happen on Championship Sunday. I could be wrong, but this is the matchup we're getting. All right, everybody, that's it. And I will see you all in 2 weeks when I make my Super Bowl 60 pick. Enjoy the conference championship games, everybody, and I will see you all in 2 weeks to make my Super Bowl pick. Take care and enjoy this Championship Sunday weekend.